Hello and welcome to another episode of our Scornavacco Martial Arts Instructor Tip of the Week. Today myself, Mr. Mike, Mr. Dylan, and Mr. Vincent are going to be taking you guys through an example of how to deal with problem material and working your way through material that's giving you difficulty or you maybe don't quite understand. We hope you guys enjoy it. So today for our example, what we'll be doing is showing you guys and taking you guys through glancing spear. So this is a technique that a lot of people will struggle with in different areas, so it's a good one to look at. What we'll be doing is addressing some of the common mistakes that a lot of students have when they're learning this, and kind of using this technique as a reference of how to pull out your own material and figure out what's making you struggle, because sometimes it's not necessarily the technique in its entirety. A lot of the times it's just one piece that you're struggling with, which if we can change or adapt it to whatever you need will make the rest of the technique work a lot smoother. So glancing spear is a straight wrist grab that ends with putting the attacker on the ground, and that's one of the pieces that make people struggle. Generally, any takedown techniques, if the takedown is not done properly, can cause a bit of a hassle. So we'll take you guys through a couple things you guys can work on if this particular technique was causing you to struggle that we can fix. So with the technique glancing spear, having a takedown in it using sweeps, there's a couple of different areas where this can cause problems. So one of the things you have to look at is how the sweep is working and maybe why, or how this sweep is meant to work and why it possibly couldn't be. So one example we see a lot is when the attack starts, rather than stepping back all the way to a reverse bow and pulling their attacker in, the attacker stays, or the defender stays statically right there. Now what this causes is the attacker never really comes forward, so this front leg is never really exposed to sweep. If we go back and have Mr. Vincent pull Mr. Dylan in, what you can see is this has set Mr. Dylan's front leg in front of Mr. Vincent's front leg. Now he's in a position where he can effectively do the sweep. Whereas if they reset back to that other position, it would be very difficult from here for Mr. Vincent to do a sweep, especially if they're really keeping a lot of distance here. The farther he has to reach with this sweeping leg, the less power he's going to have. So a bigger attacker is going to have to want to fall if he's going to knock them down. So aside from the foot position being correct or incorrect, another thing we can look at is how their weight is distributed by the attacker. Obviously, if most of his weight is on his front leg, the front leg is going to be the one that's hardest to move. If you kick it, it's going to cause a lot of pain, but it's going to be hard to lift that front leg with just a sweep if all of their weight is on it. So what we do in this technique is make sure we set your attacker back. So he steps back, he pulls Mr. Dylan in front. Now as he clears down and does this heel palm strike, as you can see, this has put all of Mr. Dylan's weight on this leg, making that leg really light and easy to move. If we hadn't done that, and we just do the heel palm strike without pushing our attacker back, most of his weight is going to be there as he has just stepped forward onto that leg, which is going to make this technique really difficult. Now, if you don't look at the technique in a sense of what is happening and why is it working, this could be a very frustrating piece because he's got his foot in the right position, he's doing the sweep properly, but it's not working. So we have to figure out why, and now the answer there is weight distribution. The final thing we can look at as far as correcting this technique and dealing with the takedown is whether or not we're actually applying the physical takedown properly. So if we look at this as just the sweep, we'll just go ahead and set up to the sweep position. If he was going to do this, and a lot of people like to just bring their foot straight forward and kick into the heel. This isn't terribly effective, and after you do it for a while, the inside of your foot recognizes the fact that the heel is a much stronger surface and you're losing the encounter. So instead, what we want to do is think about the fact that we are lifting the foot off the ground versus trying to slice right through it, giving this sweep an upward motion, connecting with the tendon, the Achilles tendon and the calf muscle meet, and lifting the leg off the ground. So that is one of the most difficult things to fix because it does take a skilled repetition and application. But that's a simple case of, I know what I'm supposed to do, I just don't know how I'm supposed to do it. And that is one of the questions you guys can ask yourself. So if we kind of recap on what we did today, what you guys can learn is, do I understand what I'm supposed to be doing? Do I understand how I'm supposed to be doing it? And if I don't understand why it's not supposed to be working, that's a case where you're going to want to go back to your class, ask one of your instructors. But picking apart your material and trying to analyze what the problem is, and whether it's, I can't sweep, or I don't know how the hand grab works, or I don't know where my punching target is, or what my target is, or what my weapon is. Any of those things are going to make the technique more difficult because all these pieces add into the next one. So when you're dealing with difficult material, take it piece by piece rather than the whole thing all together. We hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next week.